bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man, how you doing? How you doing? Today's Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. 102 days into the new year. Only 263 days left. It's going to be a great show. Let's do this. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of nowhere. A total undisclosed location. But it is beautiful in here. It is. Yeah. Oh, man. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR, the Game Changer, and UNX Networks, Race Hobbs. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How you doing? All right. Sent to me earlier from Laura Cantu. Astrologically, today is the very best day for manifestation that we will experience in this lifetime. Wow. That's pretty heavy. More on that in just a bit. Thank you for that, Laura. She's the best. Man, I got to get Laura back on the show. I haven't seen Laura since I was in Vegas. Man, that's probably been 2 or 3 years now. Wow, that was pre-pandemic. I can say that much. So, yeah, sent to me today from Laura. Astrologically, it's very interesting, you know, that the stars and the moon today is the very best day for manifestation that we will experience in this lifetime. That's heavy. And it certainly makes a lot of sense because tonight we have very special guest. Paul Hynek is here. Paul Hynek is with us. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin and UFOs. And there is a connection. There is. And tonight we're going to talk about all of that with Paul. And tomorrow night on this very program, Isaac Arthur joins us. We're going to be talking about exoplanets tomorrow night, exoplanets and ET, with a little Oumuamua for good measure because of Oumuamua being bumped off the charts. Yeah, right? Oumuamua is no longer the first interstellar object to visit us here on planet Earth. And I'm just trying to fix it. I got to spin it just right. There we go. Now I'm in my happy place. Oh, I am. So that's tomorrow night. Isaac Arthur is here. And then we have a programming update. That is because Thursday, Linda Moulton Howe is back with us for a full night of Antarctica, Spartan 1, Spartan 2, and beyond. All of that is Thursday. So no Fader night again this week. No open lines again this week. You'll have to wait till next week. Just deal with it. You'll be all right. You will. Manifest. You see, you didn't know. If you had known that you could manifest today anything, you would have manifested Fader Night, and I would have been in here going, oh man, no, I guess Linda's not going to be here on Thursday. I don't know why. See, you had the power. You had the power to do that. Man, I love this show. I love all of you. All right. Did you see the picture of Pegasus that I posted on Facebook? Pegasus stopped by my home on a Saturday night for a visit. Unbelievable crystal skull. Courtesy of Carolyn Ford. Of course, Lisa Frith is the caretaker of Pegasus and brought Pegasus by. And I think 37 pounds. I didn't know how heavy 37 pounds was till I carried that skull to and from the car. But absolutely wonderful, beautiful. And you can get your next crystal skull from Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Just click on the banners over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Take you straight there. You can look at Carolyn's collection and get your first or next crystal skull today. Use the promo code Jimmy, 10% off of your order. Coming up next month and 1 month from tomorrow, I'll be speaking at the X Conference. This is going down for 2 days, May 13th and 14th, Friday, Saturday. And I'll be speaking on Friday night, May 13th. And then after I'm done, there will be a live investigation, paranormal investigation from 9 p.m. until midnight. And then Saturday, May 14th, the conference goes from 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. This is an online event. And for tickets and info and everything else, go to the unxnetwork.com. All right? And the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. And I also have it in social media. I'm very excited that I am hosting Disclosure Fest again this year, the Mass Meditation Initiative, which is going down June 18th, 2022, from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific time. That is a one-day event, Saturday, 1 day only, at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California. I'm hosting the event, and we have music performances by Trevor Hall, the Desert Dwellers, Poran Gee, many other musical guests on 4 different stages. Another 12 stages, we have workshops and yoga and dance and all kinds of things going on. It's over 30 acres right there in downtown L.A. Workshops with Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, Lori Spagna, Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, David Palmer. Wonder if David knows about how special today is. All right. I want you to go to disclosurefest.org, and the banners are over at jimmychurchradio.com. I want to remind everybody that I'll be in Egypt with Billy Carson this October. Space is very, very limited. I want you to go to forbiddenknowledge.com right now for the complete schedule and information. That is forbiddenknowledge.com. I'm going to have Billy on the show next week. And I think I'm going to have Adam Apollo on the show next week, too, as well. Did I just slip up? I never really give it away. But, yeah, next week is going to be amazing. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. At JChurchRadio. Follow me on Twitter right there. The Sandbox, hashtag F2B on Twitter. And that's where, the Fadernauts hang out. And the feed, which is full of my pre-show gifts. And Linda has a blank check to take over Fader Night anytime. Actually, she does. That's it. You guys have figured that out, right? Linda is Thursday nights. She does her thing on Wednesdays. And, on YouTube. Tuesday, she's doing show prep. Monday, she's just too busy for us. But, no, she's working on Monday and Tuesday, getting ready for Wednesday. That's it. I mean, she's booked up. That's blocked out on her calendar. So she does her thing. That's it. That leaves Thursday, and that's all right with me. Yeah, but Cassandra's on top of her game. So anyway, when you go to hashtag F2B, where I just saw the post about Linda having a blank check to take over Fader Night anytime, that happens in the sandbox, hashtag F2B, and you can check out everybody's show gifts that they post up pre-show. And there you go, Bitcoin. All right. All right. Where am I at? Let's get to the breaking news. Sad. Yeah, I'm very sad. Gilbert Gottfried, one of the funniest people on the planet, seriously, has left this earth after a long illness. His family announced all of this earlier today. He was 67 years old and crushed. 67. That's just too young. It's just too young. Oh, man. All right. Rest in peace, Gilbert. And there you go. The Bernard in Delhi Bernstein, I'm not making this up, comet, identified just last year in 2021, is now officially the biggest comet ever observed. The new record, reported on the preprint website Archive and is now accepted for publication in the journal Astronomy and Astrophysics Letters, bumps the Hale-Bopp comet from the top spot. The Hale-Bopp was discovered in 1995 and became visible to the naked eye in 1996. It was about 46 miles across. Bernardin Delhi Bernstein, also known as Comet 2014 UN 271, has now been calculated to be about 85 miles across, almost twice as big as Hale-Bopp. The comet is currently winging its way towards the interior of the solar system. It will get closest to Earth in 2031, though it's not a don't look up moment. It will remain just outside Saturn's orbit. Incredible. We'll see this thing in 2031 up close. NASA. This is crazy. Okay. Now, I need you to visualize this. You know, the sling, right? What was it, David and Goliath, right? Right? A sling, right? Maybe a discus thrower when he's spinning around, and then throws the discus. NASA, so put that in your mind. NASA has signed up to test Spin Launch's extraordinary kinetic space launch technology, which accelerates a launch vehicle to hypersonic speeds using an electronic centrifuge arm, and then lets it go, hurling it skyward like a discus. The idea behind Spin Launch is as staggering as the company's name, and it is entirely appropriate. The idea of winding up and throwing satellites most of the way into orbit just boggles mine. But in initial testing, this company's kinetic launch system, which looks externally like a turbocharger, it's round with a tube on the side that sticks out, it's shown promise as an environmentally friendly and potentially cost-effective replacement for the first stage rocket launches. I've seen the animation. I've seen this thing work, and it is crazy town. You need to check it out. Well, announced today, Netflix has introduced the short-ass movies category after SNL's Pete Davidson joked that there was a lack of films that ran less than an hour and 40 minutes. Netflix has confirmed, and I've seen it. I've actually been there and clicked on it. Netflix confirmed short-ass movies, confirmed that it was available on its streaming platform, but declined to answer a question about how long it would remain as a category. Now, anything under an hour and 40 minutes is what I call the episode of a TV series. Me personally, I like long-ass movies. I do. All right. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today, Claire Danes. Yeah, is 43 years old. Star of Homeland. Homeland had a good ending to the series finale. I guess it was pretty good, but I kind of miss it. Ed O'Neill today is 76. That's right, married with children, Ed Bundy. And Andy Garcia today is 66, star of a long-ass movie, Godfather 3. David Letterman is 75. Herbie Hancock today, are you ready? Herbie Hancock today is 82. Steppenwolf's John Kay is 78. And guitarist Pat Travers today is 68 years old. Our dead guy's birthday today is, I need a moment of silence, please, David Cassidy, 1950 to 2017. David, of course, was an actor. He was a singer, songwriter, and a guitarist. He was Keith Partridge, the son of Shirley Partridge, played by his stepmother, Shirley Jones, in The Partridge Family. This role catapulted David to the king teen idol of the known universe. David died of liver failure on November 21st, 2017 at the age of 67. And according to his daughter, Katie Cassidy, his final words were, quote, "So much wasted time," end quote. Happy birthday, David. On this day in history, 1954. Speaking of Hale Bopp and the Comets, right? Bill Haley and his Comets record Rock Around the Clock, making rock and roll official. See, and all of this is synchronicity, right? The announcement of the largest comet ever found, right? And Rock Around the Clock and time, which I'm going to discuss in just a minute. It's all synchronicity. Bill Haley. Think about that. Fader fact. Turkeys, now, not turkeys like turkeys Thanksgiving. Turkeys, as in the country. Turkey's Gate to Hell, a temple with a stone doorway leading to a small cave-like grotto, emits deadly volcanic CO2 that can kill an animal within minutes. Priests came out alive because their heads were above the CO2 layer. That's right. I'm just going to leave that right there. Just think, it's a miracle. He's got the power of God inside of him. Anything that priest would say when he comes out of there alive, think about that. And it was only because they were tall. All right. Let me hit this River Moon coffee. Tonight, very special guest Paul Hynek is here. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin and UFOs, and there is a connection. There are many connections. We're going to do all of that tonight. Tomorrow night, Isaac Arthur joins us. We're going to be talking about exoplanets and ET, Oumuamua, and which is now the second interstellar visitor. We'll be talking about all of that tomorrow night. And then Thursday, Linda Moulton Howe is with us for a full night of Antarctica, Spartan 1, Spartan 2, and beyond. That will be Thursday night. No fader night or open lines this week. All right. River Moon Coffee. RiverMoonWellness.com. Fade to Black blend. Last night we did our AMA, semi-annual AMA. Last night, one of the questions, how do I like my coffee? Well, I like my coffee, Doc. And I'm just going to say this. So today, I got to move on. I've got other stuff. But today, and you can stop following me on Twitter. You can unsubscribe to this channel after what I'm about to say, but that's fine. But today, I tried oat milk as a creamer in my coffee. One sip. It tasted like dirt. in my coffee. And I poured it out. I will never do that again. Ever. My doctor could go, dude, cream, half and half, is going to shorten your life. Like, you're going to die next week. Well, I'm going to die. But I'm going to die drinking tasty coffee. Oat milk. Oh, man. I can't speak about soy. I've never done it. But I've officially tried oat. That's bad. That's bad. Whoever's doing that and has convinced themselves, rewiring their brain that is okay. All right. You do your own thing. Okay. Because we all know about 11/11. 11/11. It seems that I check my phone twice a day for the time. Twice. A quick glance, a peek, and each time that I shift my eyes towards the end of my right arm, there it is. 11/11. Over the last couple of weeks, I took a mental note. Seriously, I said, Jimmy, I don't have to look at my phone for the time. I have clocks in every room. I have watches. I have no problems anywhere. In fact, like most of you, there are 3 clocks in my kitchen. The stove, the microwave, the coffee machine, all are synced up with the same time. There's a clock, large digital clock, underneath my TV in the family room, staring at me. In the bunker, I've got an atomic clock, and it's bright red right in front of me. So yeah, I know what time it is. But when I take the opportunity to look at my phone twice a day for the time, it's always 11/11. Why is that? Sure, we can easily jump to some spiritual meaning, ponder the significance of the numbers, the positive vibes, and I get that. Most of you will say that the universe is telling me something, saying hello, it's winking, and I get that too. It's gotten to the point that when it happens, like it did earlier today, I just laugh. It's truly crazy, and it's real. I've officially taken note of it. But here's the deal. Sure, it may be the consciousness of the connected universe, which is cool, but something else is probably going on that is much deeper, and that is, it's probably our amazing brains at work. Now, I don't know this as fact. None of us do, but I think that I've thought about and spoken about this enough over the years that my brain now knows that this is something that I enjoy. 11/11. It brings me happiness. And my brain has adjusted itself. My brain is totally synced up with my clock, your clock. And it has even taken into account daylight savings time. Seriously. My brain knows to the second when to have me look at my cell phone just to make me happy, to make me smile. There is no other rational explanation for this. It's not consciousness at work. It's our amazing brains. Endorphins, the happiness hormones, and specifically dopamine, which is produced when we feel satisfied, resulting in feeling happy, excited, stimulated, is fired off twice a day. Seriously, like clockwork. Twice a day at 11:11. Our brains, my brain, 100% knows this. It can get a guaranteed happy fix every 12 hours, and it works every time. No pun intended. So tonight, after the show, I'll edit, I'll upload, I'll download, then I'll shut down the studio. I'll cook some dinner. I'll sit down, turn on the TV and watch whatever. I'll eat. I'll kick back. I'll take a sip of a cool, refreshing liquid. I'll think about dessert. And in that blissful moment, I'll reach down, pick up my phone, and see 11:11. My brain fires off some tasty chemicals, and I'm in my happy place. In 12 more hours, I get to do it again. And that gray, gooey glob between my ears knows this. That's why 11:11 is our universal smile time that we all share. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight on this program, I'm going to get to my happy place with Paul Hynek because he's here. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin and UFOs. And I know what you're thinking. Is there a connection? Is there? Yes. We'll find out. There are a list of connections. We will go through all of that tonight with Paul. Tomorrow night, Isaac Arthur is joining us. We're going to be talking about exoplanets and ET and Oumuamua. Thursday night, Linda Moulton Howe is with us for a full night of Antarctica, Spartan 1 and Spartan 2 and beyond. No Fader night this week, folks. Deal with it. I'll be right back.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Do you have an interest in the paranormal? Then you'll love the unxnetwork.com. The X is your streaming audio and video for everything supernatural, strange, and mysterious, like UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and so much more. From hosts like Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and Christina Gomez. Visit the unxnetwork.com show page for a complete list of all the paranormal programs you'll find on the X. Be sure to follow us on Twitter for updates at KUNXDB. Follow our Facebook group, UnX Network. Find the podcast on Spotify, iHeart, Audible, and Apple Podcast. It's time. It's new. It's the X.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Paul Hynek is with us. Tomorrow night, Isaac Arthur, physicist. We're going to be talking about exoplanets and ET. And Thursday night, Linda Moulton Howe is with us, Antarctica. Tonight, it's Bitcoin and UFOs. What is the connection? There is one, or two, or three. Tonight, you're going to find out. Paul has worked in tech and entertainment and is currently a business consultant. He is also a former adjunct professor at Pepperdine. I thought you were still a professor at Pepperdine. I'm confused about that. But, of course, he was a consultant on History Channel series, Project Blue Book, based on a real project to investigate UFOs from 1952 to 1969. Of course, Paul is the son of Dr. J. Allen Hynek, an astronomer who worked with the United States Air Force, investigated UFO cases from 1948 till the end of Blue Book in 1969. Dr. J. Allen Hynek began his investigation with the United States Air Force as a skeptic, but by the time Blue Book ended, I think he was convinced that we were being visited by ET. And I've got a link up for the Hynek UFO report on Amazon. It's right there, and you can go and check that out. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black the one and only Paul Hynek. Paul, good evening, my man. How you doing?
Mr. Church, happy Manifestation Day.
Yeah, you caught that. And you know what I manifested earlier? I wanted a black cat to walk in front of me.
You got it.
Yeah, I
have my cat in black here.
That is absolutely what's your cat's name?
Sadie.
Sadie. And
yep.
Sadie knows her name.
Yes, she does.
That was hilarious. She looked right at me and went, ah. That was incredible. Okay, I'm going to let that go. That was too weird. Hey, Paul, as you know, manifesting, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I like to manifest with you, but it's not what you may think. I believe that if you want to change your life, you need to hang out with positive people who are winners, that want to move forward, that are great to be around, and that's what you do. If you want to manifest, that's step number one. You are one of those people. People should hang out with you because you glow. Do you agree with that? And part of your personality and who you are, is that because of your friends and your network and what is around you?
Well, thank you. You say the sweetest things. If I glow, it's probably because my family has a summer cabin near the uranium capital of the world in Ontario.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Right there. And you're doing everything you can to keep from laughing. You've got the serious face on. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I think that is very important. And if you surround yourself with positiveness, you're going to get that back, right?
You hope so. Karma is a pretty funny thing, and it doesn't always operate on the time frame that you can ascribe immediate causality to. So, yeah, let's just say, sure, you betcha.
Now, in your world, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin and UFOs tonight. I want your opinion on something. Are you a determinalist or are you on the free will side of the fence?
That's a good question. And first, please let me dispel your confusion. Yes, I am still a professor at Pepperdine.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of free will, I by and large believe in free will, but I'm working on a paper and the working title is, "So You're Afraid the Computers Will Take Over? Don't worry, they won't. And by the way, you never had free will to begin with."
Right. And can you mix the two worlds?
Yeah. So in terms, and we've talked before about AI, and my feeling that people get, all hung up, afraid about a potential existential extinction event when the computers take over. I'm far less concerned about the future of artificial intelligence than I am about the present of human stupidity. We might not even make it until the Matrix, for crying out loud. Now, as for free will, it's an interesting, but I'm on the Ray Kurzweil side, that I don't think that when computers wake up, and I think it's actually more of us with increasing machine capabilities, because the consciousness is the hard part, we will sort of merge with them to the extent that we want to. So I don't view it as an extinction event. But as for free will, I'm not that much of a determinist or fatalist, but there are a couple things that sort of erode what I think are cherished ideas, especially in the West, of like individual freedom.
Right.
One is the increasing awareness of the influence of our microbiome on our behaviors. There are reports coming out all the time about how strong that impact is. And the other one is there's a tract written by Sam Harris, the brilliant neuroscientist from UCLA, called Free Will. And he talks about various experiments, such as one that's been replicated several times, where you have an EKG and the subject is asked to press the blue button or the red button. The EKG picks up the chemical signal of which button they're going to press before the person is consciously aware.
That's right.
And then consciousness is sort of brought in as a +1 at the last second to feel like it's part of it, but may not have had agency. So what that indicates is that it's not so much our consciousness determining things, but there is not only the microbiome, but it's sort of a chemical basis for our behaviors. The other thing that Sam Harris says is try to predict your next thought. You can't, it just comes to you. Now, I think that these thoughts come from a pool influenced by your prior actions. So I don't think that we're all just one big chemical bacterial bag that has no choice over our actions, but it's not quite as 100% free as I think we might like to believe. That's where I stand.
And then let's go in another direction. Same thought, right? And probably the same answer, which is this: if we believe in predicting the future, or time travel, or even deja vu, right? There is no free will involved. You can't change the future, right? If somebody's going to say you're going to do this and you're going to do this, and so what? I don't have free will not to do that now. So, and then at the same time, when somebody suggests something like that, they do believe in free will, but they're not catching their thought process. They're not catching the words that are coming out of their mouth, that you can't have it both ways, right? And so it's a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a lot of big words. I don't know. But it just gets really kind of convoluted and Escher-like. It's just it just hurts my brain to think about that.
Yeah, exactly. So do we have free will? And then there's another, Sam Harris. I love talking about Sam because he's somebody that I agree with most of the time. And then it's that other 25%. I just want to grab him by the throat and shake him, right? So, but there's one thing that I find interesting, that chemicals, particles, math are going to combine at a moment in time, and will continue to do that, and you can't interfere with it. And if we take that from the micro to the macro, well, everything is going to happen in the way that it is going to happen because of math. And is it like getting into some type of determined viewpoint? Almost, in that the universe built itself the way that it did and continues to evolve mathematically and because of chemistry. So does that mean that our lives are part of that chemistry and part of that electromagnetism and gravity, that everything is inevitable, that you can't really have free will? So I don't know. And even that was determined, right? Everything that I just said. And I tried not to say it. I tried to stop myself, and I couldn't.
Well, being as how, as likely as not, we're all non-player characters in a simulation anyways, let's not get all bent out of shape about losing our precious notion of free will.
Now, let's take it one step further, and then we're going to get to Bitcoin and UFOs. If we are in a simulation, which is something that is very possible, right? And we're in a ones and zeros environment. When we dream, we are dreaming in a simulation. Our non-player characters, our NPCs, are now dreaming in the simulation. And take it a step further, when we go into an AR, augmented reality, with goggles on, now we're in a simulation inside of a simulation. It doesn't make any sense, and it gets a little confusing.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like what's past the edge of the universe, or what's past the edge of the South Pole in the pizza world of the flat earthers, right?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it keeps going. It does. It just keeps going. Yeah. So then you could upload your consciousness onto a hard drive in a simulated universe. And then there on the hard drive, you play a video game that is simulated, and it just keeps going. It keeps going and going. And, where would it stop?
I like that kind of morning zoo DJ voice you took on there. I think in the real world, we'll be able to upload whatever you call consciousness, soul, memory creator, etc. And, Ray Kurzweil, to mention him again, he's really mapped out a very good roadmap to how that all happens.
And how would it happen? Would it be part of the memory upload? Is it just that all particles in the universe have a little piece of consciousness in it? And so on that computer chip, the more you accumulate and the more data that comes in, the consciousness is built? Or is it transferred over? And would that consciousness be the same as you, or would it be a new one?
Yeah. Or would it be like a 1A of you?
Yes.
I think of it this way. The memories go on a hard drive. What creates the memories is your RAM, if you want to use the computer analogy. Putting the memories on a hard drive is already difficult enough, but capturing that active engine that creates them, your personality, however chemical and microbiome it might be, is orders of magnitude more difficult. But I believe, especially since I'm a radical life extensionist, and we could talk about that if you want, I believe that will happen in the lifetimes of many of us. And I think at that point, we will achieve, since we may well have backups, which introduces a whole nother host of issues. And there was a great episode on Black Mirror called the USS Callister that went into the dark side of backing up your consciousness, let's call it. we are going to face those decisions within the next 30, 40 years.
And will it be something that we understand? And I'm talking about the process. Or is it possible that the process will be something that we don't understand, but the consciousness transfer just happens?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, those are post-singularity events.
Right.
And, you know, singularity means an event horizon beyond which we don't understand. And so those are just mind-bending questions. But, you know, the bottom line for me in thinking about uploading consciousness or lifespan is that we are the generation on the cusp of what I call lifetime escape velocity, where with personalized medicine and all these other, you know, thymal regeneration, which is what I'm doing, and other techniques, you can actually age chronologically, but get younger in a systemic methylation, on a methylation level, you can get younger biologically each day. Now, you can still get hit by a bus or have something else happen to you. So until you have that backup, you're immortal with a lowercase I. But once you've got a backup and it's redundant and it's in your own consciousness cold wallet, then you're immortal.
How much hard drive space are we talking about here?
I would say, well, I mean, look at the brain. You know, they've already figured out the number of neurons and the sort of processing capacity of the brain. And we've got computers that can process faster than the brain right now. You know, they're very narrow in focus, and they don't have like the pattern matching and the things like that the brain brings, that sort of richness of that tapestry of human, you know, species and individual behavior and personality. But in terms of just the capacity to store memories, that's not really a lot.
So again, give me an idea. What would you
2.5 terabytes.
2.5 terabytes. Okay, it's not too terribly ginormous. There's one thing that maybe if we get to an artificial general intelligence level, this could come into play. Mm-hmm. But let's say I like blue cars. Now, maybe that artificial general intelligence will be able to understand that and pick me out my next blue car, but they don't know why, right? And it could be my experience when I was 5 years old and my neighbor had a blue car or whatever, you know, and I'm talking about blue cars, but it could be anything of a personal, emotional thing that happened in the distant past that would have nothing to do with machine learning, right? And isn't that something that would always be missing from AGI?
Well, AGI starts to get to the point where it's beyond human capabilities. And what you're talking about there is a very interesting example, Jimmy. So yes, so let's say that this AGI has access to all your memories. And it knows, okay, you were super impressed. You saw a blue Chevy Caprice when you were a kid. Okay, now it's one thing to have that memory. The next level is to understand the tagging that your brain associated with that, the level of emotional impact, the importance, you know, how it affected you overall, and weighing that against other options. You know, hey, most of your clothes are gray,
right?
Or
right.
Your house is this color, and sort of weighing the relevance of all the data points and weighting them as a, you know, also understanding, hey, is there a general rule for more recent ones take primacy over older ones? There's a whole lot of sort of expert choice that you need to put into that to sort of understand. And then also, you know, AGI also sort of presumes the ability to learn by itself and to see how you make choices. And over time to say, hey, this guy really likes things from that point in his childhood before, you know, things went to hell in a handbasket. Okay, let's stick with those until we see that he refuses that, and then we'll sort of revise the algorithm.
Right, which is a yes or no machine learning situation.
Right,
But what about the emotion, the smell, the taste, the dopamine things that happen?
Right, here's another kind of twist on that. Okay, so that AGI, let's say it's either embedded in you or hooked up to you via a super high-tech brain-computer interface. Let's say that AGI, it's smart enough to not just say, hey, let's try out the blue car, see if that works. No, what it will do, it will send a chemical signal to your brain of a blue car, and operating on that chemical level, and maybe with a handshake and a tip of the hat to the microbiome as well, it floats a subconscious trial balloon to your chemistry of a blue car. Your chemistry responds, hey, yeah, we like that. Then it presents that choice to you for perhaps final approval, or maybe it's already a fait accompli because the chemistry and the bacteria are on board with the blue car.
Now, is there a day when that could happen faster than our natural brain doing the same process?
Absolutely, because the one thing about computers is they are super fast. So whatever they can do very fast. It's more of the breadth of what they can't do. They don't understand things that aren't easily reducible. But once they know what to do, they can do it already fast enough, and they're just going to get faster and faster. So
this is where we switch to UFOs for a second, and then when we come back, we'll get into Bitcoin directly. ET, being more advanced than us, if they're getting here, right? Of course, understands this. They must. They are way beyond AGI, is what I'm suggesting here, and they understand this, and they must be in an AI community.
Well, think of AGI as alien general intelligence or alien superintelligence. And also, are they what we would call purely biological sentient beings, or have they had some type of merger with an artificial intelligence of their own? So they may well either through a brain-computer interface tap into a super powerful algorithmic soup, or they may have that embedded in them, and they may not see a difference between them. But you have to think, and let's call them meta-terrestrial, so we're not just only extraterrestrial, right?
Sure.
Maybe another planet, maybe another dimension, as we've talked about. Okay, if they're coming here from elsewhere, yes, presumably they're far more advanced than we are, and not just 20 years, 100 years, but maybe 1,000,000 years. So the types of things they could do and the speed at which they could do things is just unimaginable to us, I would think.
Now, with AGI, we've got 4 minutes before the break. I would think that the country or the corporation that crosses the finish line first, right, where we are in a true AGI situation, is there any way to pump the brakes, or is that AGI off to the races and out of control? And I'm just talking about average human intelligence, but if you achieve that moment, is that just gone? There's no way that any other country, everybody else loses, right? There's only one winner at that point.
Well, there's levels of artificial intelligence and scopes of what it does. So it could be very powerful, but only in cleaning things up and inadvertently clean us up, right? There's all kinds of risks of ambiguity in the instruction set. But let's take this sort of broad stroke approach of an AGI that we think is all powerful. I think there are basically two technological events that could happen such that the entity that has that is game over, and they all your base belong to us. One is a substantive advance in AGI, because now at the kind of level that we're talking about abstractly, now all of your battleships, all of your computer systems are mine and they are working for me. So you have nothing to fight with. And to the extent that this AGI is robust against hacking and against the anonymous group and all that, okay, then that's over. The other one is a meaningful handshake or reverse engineering of alien technology. You know, anti-gravity, things like that. Those are the two types of things that if one country gets a meaningful substantive advantage of in AGI or alien tech, I think that's pretty much game over.
It would be. It is we hear about these different Olympic events, you know, where different corporations and brain trusts and universities and state actors around the world are all working on these different things. But is that the one that everybody is investing in right now? And I'm talking about, you know, the countries of the world with their great corporations, that goal is artificial general intelligence.
Yeah. It's hard to know, but it seems like the U.S. from published accounts isn't as robust. And I think China is particularly devoted to this. But I mean, that's a qualitative jump forward as opposed to iterative. And the kind of like in the movie Her, where I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
The Scarlett Johansson disembodied character becomes self-aware and it's off to the races. And it's, you know, it's not just like, oh, hey, sorry, Joaquin Phoenix, I don't like you so much. No, she just completely loses interest overnight because her recursive self-improvement is so fast that if you have this AGI that's able to learn and able to do all these things, it just would be lightning fast. And that's kind of what the singularity is, that once that happens, the point at which artificial intelligence becomes self-aware, either because it has had consciousness as an emergent property or we've somehow grafted it on there, or because we have incorporated sufficient machine capabilities into ourselves who already have the consciousness. Once that coupling takes place, it's not a slow process for it to start pursuing its goals.
No, it would be immediate. If so, you know, I've got this AGI, we do it, and I go, you know what? Write me the perfect gangster movie or whatever, right? And literally in an hour, the AGI could read all of the great works of fiction ever published, right? Every screenplay ever written, and do it immediately. Something that would take thousands and thousands of screenwriters and individual brains to do over hundreds of years, right?
You could go to OpenAI right now. I got a good friend, Andrew Main, who is writing all their technical materials and helping people understand what they do because their capabilities are so strong, it's hard to understand. You can go in there and type a koala dunking a basketball, and it will create photoreal images of a koala dunking a basketball or whatever else you can think of. And that's happening right now, and that's free.
And scary. And this is where we take our first break. Our guest tonight, Paul Hynek. Tonight, we're talking about Bitcoin and UFOs, and this is a great setup for this segue. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. More with Paul Hynek right after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, The X.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the fastest growing and one of the most watched networks in the world. I would like to personally invite you to check out our expanding library of TV, film, lectures, and special presentations. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has over 6,000 videos covering lost history, health, UFOs, spirituality, and our future. We are committed to our community, and with my personal invitation, you can, right now, get your free 30-day membership at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Your own library of information starts today at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer. Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com.
Hi, Race Hobbs with the X. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you have an interest in unexplained phenomena like ghosts, Bigfoot, and UFOs. And by now, you know that we have our own X blog, the UnX newsletter, and the UnX magazine quarterly. But most of you don't know that we have started our very own paranormal conference. And this year, for safety, this 2-day XCon will be virtual, so you can attend from the comfort of your home. XCon presenters include Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, Margie Kay and Preston Dennett, Lisa Martin and Wayne Lawrence, Lee Spiegel, Debbie Zagelmeyer, Dan Terry, Kate Grabowski, and Ray Hernandez. There will also be a live paranormal investigation by the Riverside, Iowa Paranormal Team. So come hang out with us in the safety of home as we set out to explain the unexplained Friday, May 13th and Saturday the 14th, 2022. And tickets are on sale now. Go to unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church. Fade to Black.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We're also Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers, and you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Paul Hynek is with us. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin and UFOs. What is the connection? I'm telling you, there's one, there's two, there's three, and tonight we're going to find out. And as we jump into this, feet first, Paul, let's start with Bitcoin. And give me a definition. What is Bitcoin?
First, I want to say thanks for that break. I had a nice, refreshing glass of oat milk, and it really, really hit the spot, Jimmy.
So,
Bitcoin. So let me preface that by saying, a UFO disclosure, we talked about like if a government has that technology, it's kind of game over. A UFO disclosure with a capital D is the biggest revelation in history, right? And I will put to you that Bitcoin, blockchain, and I think we might use these terms a little bit interchangeably, is the biggest innovation in our lifetimes. It really is. Bitcoin's far more than something to diversify your portfolio. It's the future of money itself. If we look at the current situation, and it's just not picking at Democrats or Republicans, but both of them, it's a bad situation. Today came out that we have 8.5% inflation, and that's artificially low. That's just the CPI, which is jerry-rigged. It doesn't include tuition, healthcare, real estate, everything else that you have to buy. So it's a lot higher than that. So, and there's two causes of inflation: supply and demand, prices going up, but also when a government prints more money. And I think most of us know that the government's been on a printing spree like never before, like 40% of all dollars ever printed in the last 18 months or 2 years. That never ends well. So we've got every dollar that they print reduces the value of every dollar in circulation. That's just a mathematical axiom. So with the inflation from prices and printing up new dollars, it's a unprecedentedly large systematic theft from each and every one of us that has any asset denominated in dollars.
What's the difference? I'm going to interrupt you if I may. What's the difference then in every new Bitcoin that is created? Isn't it the same philosophy?
So it's not. Well, yes, but, and it's a big but. So Bitcoin was created as an antidote to the 2008 financial crisis. It is the hardest money ever created. And what that means is in economics, when you have a hard money supply, think of gold. Lots of times in histories, and for most of American history, our dollars were backed either by gold or silver, which meant that, at least theoretically, if we were playing by the rules, we could not print more dollars than gold we had in Fort Knox and other locations. Okay? And gold has always been a good currency, a good money, because of what they call stock to flow. It's just historically, you've never had more than about a 1% increase every year in the total amount of gold in the world, because it's hard, it's expensive to mine. And now we have so much gold that a 1% increase is still a lot of gold mining. So gold holds its value very well. It's a relatively hard currency because you can't expand it willy-nilly. The US dollar, the Japanese yen, the European, the euro, these are all what they call fiat coins. They're not backed. The dollar was backed until 1971. It's not backed by gold anymore. So these are called fiat coins because the government just declares them by fiat and prints as much as they want to. There's nothing backing the US dollar. There's kind of a support system, the full faith and confidence of the government, but they're not backed.
Right. Okay. So what is backing Bitcoin? Because there's mining operations all over the globe cranking them out, just like the printing presses of the U.S. Mint.
Right. So that's true. Now, the difference is Bitcoin has a total eventual circulation of 21 million Bitcoins. And it will never be any more than that. And we already know it is. It's a very set schedule of the mining of Bitcoin. It will never be any more than 21 million. So even though they're still mining them, and it will be for another 100 years or so, already 19 million Bitcoins have been mined. So there's only 2 million more ever to be mined, and people know exactly what that schedule is.
Okay. This is just for me. I'm asking these questions for the audience because as you speak, they're thinking these thoughts. And the first one is, wait a minute, it was created in 2008. We're in 2022. So that's 14 years ago. We're at 19 million Bitcoins. but it's going to take 100 more years to mine another 2 million?
Yeah, because there's a halving every 4 years. The hash rate, the frequency at which new Bitcoin are mined, drops by half.
Gotcha.
And there's a lot of logic for that, but the main point in comparison to fiats and the unlimited supply, the U.S. government, there's no limit. They can print as many dollars as they want. There's nothing to stop them from doing that.
You can't turn off the tap, or they're not going to turn off the tap.
And the problem, if you do that, like with COVID or TARP, it's a big stimulus for the economy, but there's a hangover. If there was no cost to printing more dollars, well, then the government wouldn't need to take money from us for taxes. They just print more money. So with Bitcoin, it's the hardest money because we know exactly what that schedule is, and it's decreasing. So there's going to be fewer and fewer Bitcoin that enter the system from now on. It's backed by mathematical certainty. The U.S., all currencies in the world are not backed, but Bitcoin is backed by a mathematical contract that cannot be violated and which is now supported on maybe 100 million computers around the world.
Okay, I want to clear up some mystery here. Who wrote the software?
Okay, now, so that's a super interesting point. Nobody knows. Bitcoin is, I believe, the biggest innovation of our lifetimes, and we don't know who created it.
I thought it was done by Satoshi Yamamoto or whatever his name is.
Satoshi Nakamoto is the pseudonymous name that the creator or creators, man, women, whoever it was, used in posts starting in 2008 through 2010 online, and then disappeared.
What about, wait, stop. You can't say that. Well, you are saying it, but what about the interviews that I've read and the story that he presented and why and the philosophy and the moral foundation of Bitcoin and all of that? Are you saying that was made up?
The only communications that are reliable to have come from the code name Satoshi Nakamoto are the white paper that they posted on Halloween Day in 2008, and about 100 subsequent emails and postings to Bitcoin.org. There's nothing else. There are no interviews. There are no video. There's nothing like that.
No, I don't think I've ever seen a video. That's a good point. Yeah. But I'm positive I've read interviews.
The other thing about Satoshi Nakamoto is that there are about 1 million Bitcoin in the wallet, which is like a personal bank that belongs to Satoshi Nakamoto. They have never been touched. So a lot of people think that this person died in 2010, around the time they stopped making any posts. Now, there's some other even wilder theories, which can bring us back to aliens and things like that. But, you've got a technology, because Bitcoin is not a coin. It's not a money. It's not a currency. It's a technology and riding on the blockchain. So you've got somebody, and never before has somebody created something out of scratch with no company behind it, no marketing budget, no nothing, purely by viral contact, has gone from nothing to being worth almost $1 trillion in about a decade. We've never seen anything like that.
How would those 1 million Bitcoins ever get circulated? It's not possible, is it, if it's in his wallet?
Well, it depends. I mean, let's say that let's say Satoshi Nakamoto was one woman and she had the 1 million coins in her wallet, and let's say she died. If nobody else had the passcode, then yes, those Bitcoin are lost, and there's in that scenario no way to get them back. Now, that person might still be around. They may have shared their passcode with instructions not to divulge it for 20 years. Who knows? There's all sorts of scenarios you can imagine. But the one that seems most likely to me, based on a lot of the evidence I've seen, is that it was an individual, likely schooled or native in British English, a very good but not brilliant coder, who likely died or just got so thoroughly disenchanted for some reason. And around the time they disappeared, they said they were very scared of all the attention that was coming from WikiLeaks, and that might swamp the system, and the hornets were swarming. But we've never in history had such a momentous invention, and nobody, even at the time, knew who did it.
Is this is just a quick question, but with Ethereum and the other cryptos that are out there, do they have the same finite theoretical lifespan?
At last count, there's probably about 20,000 different cryptocurrencies.
Right.
And they all have different, what we call tokenomics. Some of them have infinite amounts. Some of them have fixed amounts. Some of them, like Ethereum, is shifting to become actually deflationary. There will be less Ethereum over time. So they're all different, and they all have different use cases. Bitcoin is unique from other ones in that it is the most decentralized of all the cryptocurrencies, because there was no initial coin offering. There was no opportunity for anybody to have better terms than anybody. Even Satoshi Nakamoto had to go through the same procedure to mine them as anybody else could have. And there was never a company sort of managing things. So it's very decentralized. All other cryptocurrencies are more centralized and trying to do a lot of things to be adequately decentralized in the eyes of the SEC.
Now, why is it when I go to Coinbase or different websites and I monitor the top 20 cryptos, right? And you look at the graphs and the trading charts, they all follow the same ascending and descending patterns daily. They both rise and fall together. Why is that? Why isn't one crypto like independent in its growth or either way, increasing or decreasing?
So at the moment, there's a fair amount of correlation both between crypto overall as an asset class as with equities. If interest rates go up, crypto and equities typically go down. Now, crypto and Bitcoin are still viewed more or less as risk-on assets, in that it's a fairly risky asset. And if things get scary around the world, people tend to go risk off and sell that asset. Now, what I think is happening is that, especially in the institutional mindset, more than the retail investor, it's becoming clearer because of more reasons that we can talk about, that Bitcoin is the safest place you can possibly put your money. There's some accounting difficulties for corporations, but getting past that, as soon as companies start to realize, wow, if the world goes really badly, I need to keep my money in Bitcoin because it won't deflate there. Once companies view it more with that prism, that will be an inflection point akin to how the internet took off in 1997, and the price of Bitcoin, in my mind, will skyrocket, along with many other worthy cryptocurrencies.
Will there ever be a point of the government or any agency being able to crack and monitor cryptos?
So that's a good question. And that's sort of one of the things, the connective tissues between Bitcoin and UFOs. So as you know, I'm very interested in sort of following in my father's footsteps. He created a classification system for UFOs, close encounters first, second, third kind. It doesn't speak to the communications that took place. So I'd like to help sort of classify communications. And I've been thinking a lot about that. And I started thinking about, well, on a larger scale, how would planet Earth communicate with the Pleiadians or from Alpha Centauri, et cetera, on a civilization level scale and conduct trade or something like that. And for me, it would have to be with a blockchain because it's a trustless, verifiable, immutable protocol that's really geared for two civilizations that don't have relationship to be able to talk to each other. So as I started thinking about that, I thought, okay, UFOs and crypto, what else do they have in common? And I'm not the only one to think about this. You mentioned Avi Loeb at the top of the show, the Harvard astronomer who's tracking Oumuamua. He spoke at a Bitcoin conference last Friday about the similarities he also sees between Bitcoin and crypto. And I'm going to be speaking with him on a panel at the UFO Disclosure Symposium in Utah on May 27th or May 28th, perhaps. And so I'll have a lot to talk with him about. One of the things he mentioned, and this circles back to what you mentioned about the government, Jimmy, is the kind of commonality in both situations. And the way I see it, in both UFOs and crypto, the government, say the US government, is a centralized actor. We don't know really what they have, and we don't know what they'll say. In UFOs, what that means is we don't know. Well, there's not a universal consensus on, do they have alien bodies? Do they have retrieved crashed saucers? Do they have hybrid human aliens? There's not a definitive answer for that. And what will they disclose? Are we now in a process of lowercase d disclosure with an accelerating editorial schedule, priming the pump for a big signal capital D disclosure landing on the White House lawn? I don't know. And frankly, I no longer give a rat's ass what the government has to say. They've been disinforming us for decades, and I don't feel like being drawn along by them anymore. With crypto, there are rumors, and I got something to point to this, that maybe it was the CIA who created Bitcoin, or that the CIA and other agencies in the government have a lot of Bitcoin that allow them to use off-balance sheet funds for black ops, like Iran-Contra-Gate. Okay, so we don't know what they have, and we don't know what they're going to say. And in the crypto lens, that comes down to regulation. What will they do? How will they try to regulate this? Because the US government should view cryptocurrency as a threat to them, because they've had this abusive criminal monopoly ability to steal value from all of us for decades. And that's coming to an end with the sort of disruptive cleansing effect of democratizing equitable way to relate to money that is cryptocurrency. The center or the core ethos of cryptocurrency is decentralization. You and I can conduct something between us, even if we don't know each other. And there's protocols and smart contracts, so it can be a trustless protocol. I don't have to trust you, and we can make sure neither of us cheat each other. It's immutable, it's instant, it can be free, and it's math-based. And we don't need an Uncle Sam or a Bank of America taking a big cut of that transaction. It's also the most democratizing and franchising. Bitcoin is already the most widely distributed asset in the world. Anybody with a cell phone or a laptop can buy Bitcoin. It's like if you look back 100 years, the most pristine asset was probably a block of Manhattan real estate. Well, you had to be named Cornelius Vanderbilt to buy that. Now, a migrant worker in Paraguay can buy Bitcoin for his family and achieve wealth in several years. So you have this ability for everybody to participate in this. And with public disclosure and people realizing the government is not a faithful actor in the UFO field, they have their agenda. And look, if I was the government, maybe I would not disclose Area 51 and things like that. But from a public point of view, they're not acting the way we want. We are, Chris Mellon and others are forcing information out of them. And John Greenwald just got a big bunch of information, but they're doing it unwillingly. And it's the same thing with cryptocurrency. They're trying to regulate it in a way to protect their corrupt monopoly.
Now, here's a connection between Bitcoin and UFOs. How many Bitcoins would you spend to get abducted?
Whoa, Jimmy, you're making my mind burst because I will never spend a Bitcoin on anything. What I tell people, and so you know our mutual friends, Paula Harris and Jacques Vallée, very well.
Sure.
I've had lots of conversations over my whole life with both Jacques and Paula, and recently I have been badgering them to buy Bitcoin, and they now have. And Jacques has really plunged into it because he's such a technically savvy guy.
He gets
and
it.
He's asking about quantum decryption and all this. So they both now have Bitcoin. And what I told them, especially Paula, who she just doesn't care so much about it. But if she thinks that I feel it's a good, safe thing to do, then she's happy to do that. She's got more important things than to learn about other cryptocurrencies. So what I tell her and Jacques and others, if you don't have the interest or time to learn about them all, JBB, just buy Bitcoin.
Now,
and the other part is NSB, never sell Bitcoin. And I can get into more details why, but never ever sell it.
So I'm confused.
Even for a ride on an alien spaceship, do not sell your Bitcoin.
So do you not use it for transactions?
So now we get to sort of some of the nub of it. Bitcoin is a currency that can be used for transactions. The value I and many others see in it is as a store of value. So, that's one of the principal characteristics of money. It's a medium of exchange and it's a store of value. Let's say you are in the Middle Ages, a leather tanner, and you work all day. What would you like to receive value in? Corn from the field, which you can eat, but you can't do much with. A piece of silver is much better, right? It's fungible. You can you can transfer it to somebody else. You can put it under your mattress and you'll have value the next day. But with inflation eroding the value of that, dollars, even in your bank account, someplace safe, you will lose 10% or 20% of your value by next year. Bitcoin doesn't have that. So it stores your value. Bitcoin in its history is, by the way, the best appreciating asset of all time.
But it's not it doesn't have value until you sell it.
Yes, it does, Mr. Church, because you can borrow against it and you can earn the equivalent of interest with it.
Oh, but that interest is only if you sell it. No. You know what I'm saying?
Just like if you have money in a bank account, Bank of America is so generous, they're going to give you like 0.0001 interest on the money in your account, in a savings account, right?
Sure.
With Bitcoin, you get a lot more. You get 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 or 5% interest on your Bitcoin without losing your Bitcoin.
Okay. But here, and I just blew past the commercial. I'm just going to say this in 15 seconds. I have a drawer full of dollar bills, right? 20s, 1s, whatever.
Is the door locked?
And it's not worth anything until I spend it. It's just paper. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin. You could have 1,000 Bitcoins, but it's not worth anything unless you either exchange it or spend it on something.
No, it maintains its value, and that value is expressed in whenever you make a transaction, but it has not lost its value. The dollars in your drawer are going to be worth less a year from now than they are now, but they haven't lost their value because it has stored that value.
Okay, well, I'll give you another example. I have a drawer full of gold bars, and I do, but they're just gold bars. I can't eat them. The only way they have value is if I do something with them.
Right, but they don't lose their value between when you purchase them and when you sell them. They maintain that value. You're just not able to do anything with them until you do the transaction. But that's why gold and dollars and Bitcoin are what you put your value in as opposed to something perishable like a bushel of corn.
Right. And that's why you're the smart guy in the room, and I'm just a radio show host. This is Fade to Black. My guest tonight, Paul Hynek. I can try to be devil's advocate, but I'm not going to get anywhere. We'll be right back after this short break. It is Bitcoin and UFOs tonight with Mr. Hynek. Stay with us.
Out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and this year, June 18th, 2022, the Disclosure Fest Foundation presents the Mass Meditation Initiative. It's Saturday, June 18th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., one day only at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California, right next to Chinatown. I'm hosting the event again this year with music performances by Trevor Hall, The Desert Dwellers, Paul Hynek, and many, many more on 4 separate stages. There's 16 stages in total, over 30 acres in downtown Los Angeles, with vendors and tents and presentations and workshops with Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, Lori Spagna, Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, David Palmer, and many, many more. It's all simple to do. Just go to disclosurefest.org for all of your tickets, information, and a full schedule of the day's events. Again, disclosurefest.org. Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Paul Hynek is with us. We're talking about Bitcoin and UFOs, the connections. And, okay, I've got a couple of fundamental, just basic questions. And we'll just make this quick because I want to get to connection number 2. Is this. So here's my Bitcoin wallet, right? And I hear the recommendations are to put your wallet on a USB drive and not your computer. But
I think you should put your wallet in the same drawer as your cash and the same drawer as your gold, and leave your door unlocked tonight until about 11 p.m. That's my recommendation.
Okay,
in Palmdale.
And here's the deal. So solar flare, some EMP, whatever, and this gets erased. Am I ass out?
That's a colorful phrase. I think you are not ass out, because in the earlier days, it used to be hardware dependent. And you may have heard that story about the guy who's trying to get his hard drive out of the dump in England.
Yep.
Now it's your passphrase. And the hardware is not incidental. You don't want to lose it, but it's the passphrase, either 12 words or 24 words. And that's the key, not your passphrase. That's literally your key, not your coins, people in crypto say. So you can lose that device and you can recover it because it's not really physically on there. It's the passphrase that's important. And you can have that on a piece of paper. You don't want to store that electronically. Have it on a piece of paper hidden in your house, in a safe deposit box, at your mom's house, under the cookie jar, etc.
Or committed to your memory.
Sure, and with a hypnotist on call.
Well, your passphrase could be the first two verses for Stairway to Heaven.
No, your passphrase, luckily, is not allowed to be the first verse of a song. It's given to you randomly. Even a song as memorable as Stairway to Heaven, my friend.
Oh, okay. So you couldn't, you could, or Uri Geller could remember it, maybe. But I get what you're saying. Okay, so it's a random generated 24-word passphrase.
Yeah, and that's, it brings up one of the important concepts to understand with crypto is that, within a centralized system that's corrupt, about 2 billion people in the world are unbanked. Means they're effectively shut out of the financial system.
Correct.
Another few billion are preyed upon by usurious credit card companies, etc. This is the centralized financial system we live in. The sort of convenience for us is that we have a bank. If something goes wrong, we have someone's throat we can choke. There's FDIC insurance and all that. We're not responsible. Well, with crypto, you're not paying those for that bank that gives you bad service. You're getting much better interest. You don't have to wait till talk with them, but you also have more responsibility. Now, there's a burgeoning industry of companies that would act similar to a bank and take over that responsibility. But by and large, the philosophical difference is if you don't have this centralized layer in between you and who you'd like to conduct a transaction with, you're going to bear more of the responsibility. And that comes down to like a passphrase. And it's getting easier and easier for us individuals to be comfortable with that responsibility and not lose Bitcoin or other coins that we have.
Now, and you had said earlier, I want to move on to UFOs, but you said that it will always hold its value, but it was at like 60 grand a few months ago, and now it's half of that. So anybody that came in at 60 grand might feel a little bit differently.
Might feel a little bit queasy, sure. There's not one person in the history of Bitcoin who has purchased Bitcoin and not sold it who has realized to regret it. Some people bought it at 64. I bought some in 60,000 also, and it's come down to 40,000. If you zoom out, like if you look at stocks over the last 200 years, you can't even find the Great Depression. It's a tiny blip. Bitcoin started off, the first commercial transaction for Bitcoin is what they call Bitcoin Pizza Day. And that was on May 22nd, 2010. A guy named Laszlo Hanyek bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. At that point, he set the market rate or the price per coin at 0.025 of a penny, 4 Bitcoin per penny. So yes, in the last year, which has been kind of a tumultuous year, and Bitcoin is still viewed, as I said, as a somewhat of a risk-on asset, it's gone down. But it's gone up from a quarter of a penny to $40,000 today. There is nothing in history that's had that kind of appreciation. And For people who think, whoa, I missed out, is too late, Fidelity Investments, hardly a fly-by-night cryptocurrency operation, has come out and publicly predicted, and you can look this up, they predict in 16 years, in the year 2038, that one Bitcoin will be worth $1 billion. Now, that may or may not happen, but Fidelity has never come out and made any kind of prediction for any asset ever, anything like that. And yet they do for Bitcoin. And they already have said Bitcoin is a superior currency to the dollar. So for a lot of people who think, okay, I understand Bitcoin has had this amazing run. If I had bought, 10 of them 25 years or 10 years ago, I'd be rich. It's the best time now because Bitcoin was risky before. It's hard to maintain. You could lose it, like you said, on a wallet, etc. It's not risky now. And if you have a long-term point of view, and if you never sell it, it would take less than one Bitcoin now, I believe, not financial advice, do your own research, to become independently wealthy within a matter of years. That's how bullish I am on Bitcoin.
Now, you mentioned earlier about communication with ET through the blockchain. Why would that happen? I find that interesting. We'll get into what the blockchain is, but why would you suggest that?
Well, so let's say that you are a different planet and you've got a civilization there and you want to communicate with us. There's a whole lot of things. And Stephen Wolfram did a really good approach of this in the movie Arrival, right? With a non-linear language. We have to take in so many things. What is communication? And so much of it is sort of social context. And there's so many issues involved, as, Desiree and JJ Hurtak are really steeped in terms of what is consciousness and what would communicate a conversation, and would we even know that that other entity is conscious? But it needs to boil down to some kind of handshake, some kind of interstellar API, if you will, that allows us to be on the same frequency and some similar semantic construction. A blockchain is, Bitcoin is a currency that resides on a blockchain. The blockchain is a distributed ledger. It's a database. It's a database that's shared over, in some cases, millions of computers that can't be tampered with by this or that government. It's a redundant way of storing information that's immutable and trustless. And it's revolutionary in what it does that way. So for another civilization to communicate with us, if you want to get to the point where you have conversations that are on record that can't be changed, or if you want to transact value in some way, it's kind of like, Richard Dawkins has the phrase convergent evolution. That means that if you've got roughly similar environmental situations, organisms will probably evolve to be roughly similar because it's evolutionary advantageous to do that. Here I call this convergent blockchain evolution, that every civilization, if they have, and I'm leaning on a lot of things I found online for this, that if they have some characteristics of, they have a society with individuals who have rational self-interest, if they have finite resources and they don't have magic, let's say they have to obey physical laws, I believe they will develop a blockchain and have currencies on top of that, because that's the way that you get past the influence of any government and the abuses of that, and that allows everybody to have trust in the currency, because nobody can change it, nobody can inflate it past the contract. So I think it's an inevitable thing. And to me, it's kind of like the corollary to a lot of people in the UFO field are concerned about nuclear energy and aliens seeing that and being afraid, warning us, etc. And Jacques and Paolo's book is a great example of how they weave in nuclear testing at the Trinity site with the sightings nearby. So you can say that aliens are watching this. That's the warning sign that we're a danger to ourselves and others. The corollary to that, I think, is that aliens may be monitoring for specific telltale electronic indications that we're communicating with a blockchain, because they may feel that a blockchain, the presence of a blockchain indicates that a culture has advanced to a sufficient state to be able to interface with an outside culture.
Now, the blockchain, which I always envision, kind of like the Akashic records, right? It's something out there that I try to visualize, and I visualize it like a secure, locked down Excel spreadsheet that doesn't end. Is that a good way to kind of visualize this? It's just entries. It's entries, and there's always the new entry at the bottom.
Yeah, I do my best thinking in Excel, so I'm with you there. And yeah, it's just a block. Every new bit of information is a block, and every block gets appended to the end of the previous chain. So you have blocks appearing on the chain. That's all it is. And so that everybody, there are 100 million computers now that have blockchain or that have Bitcoin accounts. Every one of them has the complete and total history of Bitcoin transactions on their computer, which is why nobody can change it.
Because everybody sees the same information.
Everybody has the same information. That's right.
Now, how big is that now? I mean, that's got to be crazy. So in every mining operation, everything that is going on, that is part of the blockchain, right? It has to be.
Yes, and they're stored on nodes. And luckily, it's getting bigger and bigger, and it's going to become a larger issue. But this type of data is not like visually rich or music. So the footprint of the data is not enormous, but it's getting larger.
Right. And going back to the communication with ET, again, this is a visualization on my part, but ones and zeros. And I say that because positive and negative, on and off, that's the fundamental basis of the universe in general. Electricity, off, on, positive, negative, binary. And that communication, when you break it down to its basics, is as fundamental as it gets. On or off, 1 or 0, positive, negative. And ET would certainly understand that.
Absolutely. More likely than not, they've also sort of converged on a binary communication system. And if not, they've used something radically different. But if they're communicating with us, unless we've gone there, they're far more advanced than we are. And I can't imagine that they wouldn't be able to piece together, oh, these little cute humans are binary. How adorable. And figure it out overnight.
Now, okay, let's say the communication, the internet pipeline is connected between ET and us. Who goes first? Do we, you know what I mean? Who sends the first message, and would we be able to understand? I like the arrival comparison, by the way, because somebody's got to go first. And what would we send them to establish the basics of what we're talking about, of language? And the same thing would have to come from them if they went first.
Well, it's a challenging thing. So if you go back to the Pioneer plaque, I think in 1972 or so, the one on Voyager, conceived by Carl Sagan and Frank Drake, and designed by Carl Sagan's wife at the time, who's an artist. And it's got, you can look it up, Pioneer plaque, and it's got line drawing of a naked man and woman.
Yeah, we did pornography. Our first communication is porn.
Right. And it's got like a star map. And so I saw a joke, and I made a joke based on this. I made a cartoon that basically shows this. And on top, it's got a picture of an angry alien that says, hey, humans, would you knock it off with the unsolicited naked pictures and directions to your house? It's creepy. Signed, the aliens. So it's very difficult because we don't know what their culture would be like or their norms. Something that could seem to be, a hand being held up like the man and the Pioneer plaque, that could seem to them to be if they have a notion of bipedal creatures, to be a threatening posture. Something that's interesting to me is, we call it the internet, and you probably know what the earlier name for the internet was when it was limited to the government.
DARPANET.
Yeah, ARPANET. At DARPA, right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't the original name. The original name as of 1962, was the Intergalactic Computer Network.
Oh, is that right? No.
Which became ARPANET, is now our internet as we know it. And since 1982, there's an international body of 11 member states that's the Consultative Committee for Space Data Systems that's working on sort of interstellar communications protocols. So there's been work and a lot of thought going on for this for a long time. And it's a super challenging situation to figure out, like you said, who makes the first move? Is that friendly or hostile? What type of language? And I think it will come down to binary and mathematical computations, because those are unambiguous and probably universal.
Now, would you do, this is, again, this is just me. I'm not a PhD. But would you do like the most basic of the basics, like hydrogen, right? Yeah. Would you say that the first word is our version in binary of like hydrogen or helium or carbon, something that is absolutely universal, right? Would you go that route first?
Yeah, something like that, or some type of pictorial representation of our solar system. But then again, maybe they don't have vision like we do. They may not think in time like we do. You know, I worked with the University of California, Santa Barbara physics department, and Philip Lubin, who's the world leader in using lasers to accelerate rockets to close to the speed of light. And we talked about, well, if we do this, and we talked about communications, but we also talked about if we can send payloads and we could send tardigrades or C. elegans worms, two organisms uniquely designed for the rigors of spacecraft. And we may have been descended from tardigrades for all we know. Then the question is, and we had a German space ethicist. The question is, should we send life into the universe as sort of a communication? Or do we have the right? Do we have the obligation to do, you know, panspermia, send life into the universe? So there's so many ethical questions. And let's say that we come across another culture. Well, will we have kind of a prime directive limitation like in Star Trek to not interfere with them unless we believe it's in their interest? They face imminent danger. How do we define that? How do we understand them? Are we endangering or antagonizing a culture? Say you have like a native tribe in the middle of the Amazon, right? Should we or should we not reach out to them? There's so many difficult questions, but I believe that once a handshake is formed and you have a communications channel, it will likely be binary at first, and then any type of value exchange will be on a blockchain.
And would we, okay, so we send them the first message in the blockchain ledger, right? And should that first message just be one big binary block, zeros and ones, in English, right? Hello, we are the people over Earth, blah, 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 all in ones and zeros. Their AI takes a look at that off of the blockchain and just makes sense of the language.
Yeah, and we would bypass English. We would just send, if we're going to make it visual, and perhaps we have to do more than just visual, we just send zeros and ones. We just send some binary language,
right,
which can represent anything.
So you think it would be visual instead of language-based and letter-based?
Well, I would say not English. Whether it's spoken or written or whatever, we wouldn't use a language like English, I don't think. I think we would make it in binary, and it could be sounds, it could be, you know, Braille-type bumps, it could be visual representations of zeros and ones without, well, I guess we could include a language or languages along with that, but I don't think they'd be that helpful.
Okay. I know I sound dumb, but
that's my thing.
Yeah, I would think no. You're tardigrade. I'm just straight dumb.
Whoa! Bam.
Is this, Paul? We would have to. I would think we would need a language foundation. I would suggest English, because if they figured it out and we're communicating back, you know, from the United States, we could start to get the back and forth. But there's punctuations that would be simple, and I would think it would be language and not visual. What if they don't have eyes?
Right. I mean, we communicate with computers and assembly language with binary, and we don't need English to communicate with computers. I think an advanced civilization may either be merged with artificial intelligence, as we talked about, certainly able to understand binary. English, we could put that in there as sort of if we wanted to, if English was the language that was chosen, or perhaps English, Spanish and Chinese, as a little bit of cultural accent, but really not necessary.
Would it be simple enough, do you think? I mean, obviously, E.T. Would be an advanced civilization. We're doing this communication. How would you visualize the response? You think the response would just come back in binary and something that we would understand right away, or we would be stumped?
It may come back in the Close Encounters jingle. Who knows?
Yeah, right.
Or it may come back in flashing, like the wow signal that the SETI folks received. I don't presume to know how they would come back, but I think that call it computer language. Binary is a more universal language than any of our Earth dialects, and more likely to be understood by a radically different culture.
And do you think, I've got 1 minute before the break, do you think that E.T., and I'm not being cavalier here, we are counting on E.T. to have math, an understanding of math the same as we do? What if they don't? What if they've moved on from math? Right?
Sure. I mean, I think all bets are off as to what they're like. And
let's
say that they are of a form, let's say they're carbon-based, and they're of a form that we would even recognize as life. We might, glide past something and not even recognize intelligent life. They could be like a mycorrhizal network underneath a forest floor.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
So let's say that it's
yes.
bipedal entities and we recognize them as life, and likewise. If they are the ones that are more advanced, if they don't use something like binary, I'm just convinced they'll be able to understand that logic. It's kind of like I mentioned about the sort of convergence. They would either have gone down that path or have something so advanced that they could look at that and say, yeah, like I said, oh, that's adorable. You're binary. Okay, we got it. Right.
This is fascinating. Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Paul Hynek, Bitcoin and UFOs. That is the subject tonight. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, The X.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? UNX Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNX-DB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, log on to getthetea.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's getthetea.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of Forbidden Knowledge, and we're heading to Egypt this October. Come join Jimmy Church, myself, and the Forbidden Knowledge team as we spend a week exploring Giza, the Great Sphinx, the Great Pyramid, Saqqara, Dashur, Aswan, Edfu, Dendara, Karnak, and we'll celebrate Jimmy's birthday in Luxor. The Forbidden Tour of Egypt is this October 5th through the 12th and includes a 4-day Nile cruise, expert Egyptologists, and a chance to explore Egypt with Jimmy and I as your host through your journey of a lifetime. Space is limited, so make your reservation now. Please visit forbiddenknowledge.com for information and complete itinerary. That's forbiddenknowledge.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and this year, June 18th, 2022, the Disclosure Fest Foundation presents the Mass Meditation Initiative. It's Saturday, June 18th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., one day only at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California, right next to Chinatown. I'm hosting the event again this year with music performances by Trevor Hall, The Desert Dwellers, Poran Gi, and many, many more on 4 separate stages. There's 16 stages in total, over 30 acres in downtown Los Angeles, with vendors and tents and presentations and workshops with Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, Lori Spagna, Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, David Palmer, and many, many more. It's all simple to do. Just go to disclosurefest.org for all of your tickets, information, and a full schedule of the day's events. Again, disclosurefest.org.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Paul Hynek, blockchain and UFOs. And I want to get to your next connection, and I'm going to ask as we get into that, how do we, okay, so ET sends us the blockchain, right? Whatever, right? Communication has started. How does somebody like Seth Shostak or any other radio telescope on the planet recognize this transmission when it comes in?
So in terms of like meaningful frequency in the pattern, right, they can pick up. So what SETI is engineered to do is to find sort of repeated non-natural pulses and frequencies of information.
A conversion would have to happen. I mean, and somebody's got to make sense of it.
Yeah, and so this is the scenario where it's a remote communication where we're not having any kind of face-to-face presence, like a ship landing on the White House lawn, right?
Sure.
But I mean, SETI's been scouring for years for signals that show like a machine-like repetition.
A data stream.
Yeah, something non-natural, sort of naturally, rising and falling in terms of signal strength.
Sure. And if we receive that data stream, and we were talking about math earlier, is physics in general, would those I'm just going to use the word algorithms, however ET would write those algorithms out. But is physics the same everywhere? In other words, if we're going to expect information or try to gain some intelligence or anti-gravity or whatever it may be, would their physics be the same as ours if we did establish a communication that we both understood?
It seems like, although we are constantly revising our understanding of physics, that the predictive capacities we've developed with our understanding of physics would seem to be universal. It's hard to imagine that there's a galaxy that has different basic physics than we do. The universe is a pretty wild place. I don't think we can rule that out, but it seems likely that they would have the same types of basic laws. However, if they've gotten to a point of post-singularity civilization and mastery of technology, they're going to have powers over matter and energy that we would liken to magic.
Right, of course. And the quantum part of this, right, particles and atoms would be the same there as they are here, right? They should be, right? So I guess gravity and the speed of light would be universal. Right, and I'm talking
subject to their ability to manipulate them. Yeah.
Right. It's such an interesting concept to me. So if they give us information, it would have to apply to what we understand with physics now. Otherwise, we wouldn't get it.
Yeah, I had a debate online with Michael Shermer a few weeks ago. Brilliant skeptic, and one of the points he's made is that, okay, say an alien civilization comes to Earth and we're thinking, wow, this is jackpot. We've got great technology to vault the whole Earth past its reliance on fossil fuels and the like. Well, the sort of logistical problem that comes up is if that alien culture really is so far advanced past us, how are we going to understand their technology, much less get the spare parts and actually employ it? So they would have to be able to either downshift it to us immediately or not be that far advanced from us such that we just simply can't understand what's happening.
How do we overcome that? What was your counter argument in that debate?
Well, my debate, what I did was I limited the debate because you can't prove extraterrestrial intelligence in an hour. What I said was, look, I'm going to show in the course of this hour that a rational person can look at the weight of evidence, the thousands of investigated unexplained cases, the public announcement from the United States Navy that they see lots of UFOs, which they call UAPs, and that they're afraid for the safety of their aviators. I use things like that speak to science to say, that's sufficient evidence for me to think, yeah, there's something going on here. You don't have to accept that there's a phenomena occurring on Earth to which you ascribe meta-terrestrial origin. You don't have to have an answer for how a civilization has got here, or why they only scare Farmer Brown at night, or what do they eat, or why don't we see them on radar. The evidence for the existence of a phenomena can be weighed on its own merits, and the inconvenience or the implausibility of how that could have got here, that should not affect your initial decision to weigh that evidence and say, yeah, not only do I think there's a phenomena here, but I think it's well past earthly technology. Those are second level questions, which are well past the parameters of a single debate.
Now, you mentioned earlier, staying right where we are right now, you had mentioned earlier about the ability to use crypto to cover things. Would crypto be used, like Bitcoin, used in a black project to, say, reverse engineer, right, alien technology, where that suddenly is not on the books?
Well, and let me sort of nuance that a bit. Bitcoin still has a bit of a stigma as being the drug lord money of choice because it's outside, it's anonymous. It's not. There have been a fair amount of studies done that on a per transaction basis, there's far more fraud going on in US dollars than there is in Bitcoin. There was a recent case where these two chuckleheads in New York had stolen a bunch of Bitcoin 4 years ago and is now worth like $4 billion. And they started trying to offload it. And they got caught immediately because the blockchain is not anonymous, it's pseudonymous. And you can't, every transaction is of public record. It's just, you don't always know who did that transaction. I have to think that there are agencies that can figure that out. So some pundit said, hey, the way these people were trying to offload this Bitcoin is akin to robbing Tiffany's and leaving your wallet. So for the United States government agencies, yeah, I mean, it's just like having dollars, whether it's Bitcoin or dollars, it doesn't really matter. They've had off-balance sheet accounts before in dollars. But what's interesting about Bitcoin and blockchain is that eventually all the transactions are public record, unlike US dollar transactions. There's no central database where you can go and see every single transaction for dollars in history. It's more murky than Bitcoin.
But back to my direct question, though, could, say, the CIA fund a private corporation like, Lockheed in backwards engineering alien tech with crypto instead of, because that would be off the books in the eyes of Congress?
Sort of. There are some advantages because of the dramatic appreciation in the value of Bitcoin and the limiting of accounting that you don't change the value on your books. So from a corporate point of view, it's a disadvantage because you buy Bitcoin. If the price goes down at some point, you impair that asset. If the price goes up, you don't mark to market. I don't want to get too far in the accounting weeds, but the sort of corollary to that is that a government agency can have a little bit more freedom because of the price variations of Bitcoin, but they don't need Bitcoin to do off-balance sheet things. They could do it in dollars as they always have. So to them, I think they're probably fairly indifferent over what the currency is. They've got money off the books and probably 100 different currencies.
And give us another connection between Bitcoin and UFOs.
Okay, so and let's talk about blockchain. I've been approached by somebody asking me to help lead an effort to make a global UFO database blockchain so that we gather information about UFO reports and put it on a blockchain so that no government agency can monkey with it. I mean, think about this as like a publicly available vault that no government agency can take away, censor, modify, because it's stored on 1 million computers around the world.
Somebody just posted the current blockchain Bitcoin ledger is 455.04 gigabytes. And he knows because he says he's running a full node.
Yeah, he's got a node, right?
Yeah.
So that's not, I mean, that's less than a terabyte.
Yeah, it's
right?
not bad.
I'm
shocked at how small that is, actually.
It's because it's just that kind of binary data. Financial data doesn't have a large memory footprint. It's when you have like visual and voxels and things like that it eats up a lot of memory. Like when I was working on Avatar, we were generating a terabyte of data a day. And here, the whole blockchain of Bitcoin in its entire history was like, what he said, like 455 gigabits.
Yeah.
I mean, gigabytes, I mean, it's not that much.
Yeah, I'm looking at his node here. He posted a picture of it. And even the node is pretty small.
Yeah. I'm about to start up a node as well.
How much electricity does a node take? And I mean, that's just running. That just never stops.
A node is different than mining. A node is one of the entities in a network that validates transactions.
But it's
There's
never
a consensus protocol.
Right, but it never stops. I mean, that's being updated.
Ideally, it doesn't. I mean, one of the really cool things about networks, and this is something I learned. I have a good friend, David Chaum, who I'm working with now, who is one of the OGs in cryptocurrency. He made the first digital currency upon which Bitcoin relies in many ways. And one of the things I've learned in working with David and the team at XX Network is that one of the ways you measure the robustness of a network is abbreviated as BFT, which stands for Byzantine fault tolerance. Because if you don't have a central actor that makes their unilateral decision, you've got the sort of coordination problem of how do you determine how many nodes? What if some of the nodes go down? And it's called Byzantine fault tolerance from the age-old Byzantine general problem, which refers to warfare in antiquity. Let's say, Jimmy, you and I we're defending our city against a marauding army, and we have 30 generals, and we make a game plan, right? Here's what we're going to do. Well, like Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. So in the heat and the fog of war, back then, without great, communications and cell phones, how do we know that the network is still robust? 4 of our generals are killed. We think 5 are enemy spies for the other side. A bunch of the messengers get killed or turned. Some of them are just drunk and not responding. So at what point do we decide that network is no longer viable? So the BFT, or Byzantine fault tolerance, is a way to describe the robustness of the network. Say it's 30% of the nodes need to be both online and reliable, then transactions can proceed.
Now, back to the UFO incident blockchain. In that blockchain, is there information that could be stored in that blockchain? Can images be stored in that blockchain? Videos? And isn't that memory intensive?
Yeah, so the way that databases work in general is that you have tags. You have got different layers. You'd have like the tags to information, and then you'd have, say, another bucket in which you'd have that data-rich information.
So it wouldn't exist in the blockchain itself?
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm starting to punch above my weight here a little bit, but I don't know if there are, let's say, visually rich blockchains. I think it might be a separate database that's referred to by the blockchain. And
so those tags, hyperlinks, whatever you want to call them, would go to an external drive that would have the visual information or whatever it may be, right? The files. Yeah. I've structured databases like that before. You mentioned Satoshi Nakamoto. There's some interesting things about this pseudonym, about the creators of Bitcoin. Satoshi Nakamoto is a Japanese name, and the rough translation is clear thinking or intelligent and central origin. So if you think intelligent and central origin, is there by any chance a 3-letter U.S. government agency that sounds like that? Right? So some people think it's the CIA that created Bitcoin, which is interesting. Now, here's something that my friend Andrew Smith Lewis and I discovered yesterday that I don't know if anybody else has seen. Write down the letters Satoshi Nakamoto on a piece of paper, and there's an anagram that you get from rearranging those letters that to me is convincing evidence that Satoshi Nakamoto was an alien. And I've never seen this before. So you take the letters Satoshi Nakamoto and you rearrange them, and here's one of the things you can get. Greetings, Earthlings. Bitcoin is a gift from the universe to help mankind. Please don't mess it up. And listen to Fade to Black. Sincerely, the aliens. Isn't that incredible? I mean, what more of a smoking gun do you need? I know, and I'm looking, and that's and that's hidden in there really well. Because I never thought there were that many letters, but when you start rearranging them, there's some kind of Bitcoin appreciation factor that happens. And there isn't even an F in there. Go figure. Yeah, I know. That's incredible. Right? I actually wrote it down. See, you got me hook, line, and sinker. I actually wrote it down and was trying to de-scramble. The other connections that are here, I believe that the blockchain idea, and I didn't think of blockchain when we were discussing this earlier this week, is that the blockchain would allow the back and forth between ET and us to remain unchanged. And you can go back and continue to look at it and look at it and look at it, because you have to figure out each other's languages. And if it's in the blockchain, there isn't any confusion, right? Am I making sense here? That
Yeah,
you can
as long as it's a sufficiently distributed ledger, right? Then it's very difficult to change. Now you can imagine an alien intelligence that's smart enough to somehow rewrite hard drives, perhaps. But what it would likely come down to is that for societies to exchange value, it's almost inevitable that they will each develop their own equivalent of a Bitcoin. For one planet to say, hey, we like your Bitcoin, we're going to mine that, you've got propagation delays and difference in hash rate dominance and all these technical things that make it unlikely. So it would be more likely that each planet would make their own, soul coin or Bitcoin equivalent. And that now they would mine it there. And part of the, people get confused about the energy consumption of Bitcoin. And we can talk more about that if you want. It's actually very green, the greenest currency of all time. But you need to have that money hard to make. Compare that with the United States government, prints money like drunken sailors because it's easy. When it's hard to make, it makes the currency valuable. You couple that with the mathematically guaranteed limits, that's what makes Bitcoin more valuable than any currency ever. So each planet, I believe, will develop its own Bitcoin-like monetary unit. Those can be exchanged around the universe, and it will come down to the credibility of that planet itself, not of any government on the planet, but the whole planet, and what I call the PCS, the Planetary Credit Score.
Which, if there is intergalactic trade, which there must be, there has to be a method to do it.
That's right. And that it would come down, it all sort of comes down to the inevitable, inexorable logic of a Bitcoin-like monetary system.
Right.
Because I'm not going to, if I'm a Venetian, I'm not going to accept a bunch of Benjamins, which I know aren't going to be worth very much. I'm not going to, as a Venetian, I'm not going to say like, oh, I need to monitor for cryptic, Federal Reserve announcements to see which way they're leaning in terms of quantitative easing. Right. No, I want a money that I know is impervious to all these machinations and abuses. So I think all planets will have that. And then you start getting into what's called Bitcoin astronomy of the sort of more details of the likely development paths for civilizations based on what level of a Kardashev civilization they are. Are they using energy on a planetary level, of the stellar scale, or galactic? And the Bitcoin, the equivalent of Bitcoins, will mirror that level of development.
Before are you going to hang on for overtime?
Sure.
Okay, good. Because this is starting to get a little deep for me. And there's this question. If we did recover technology, let's go with Roswell. Let's just stay there because it's an easy thing to say. Printed circuit boards, chips, an operating system. Did we understand that at that time, that this was computer, that there was a language here, there was an operating system that was there? And if we did, do we now understand, do we have their Windows 11 operating system?
If we got a Windows operating system from an alien race, we need to sort of trade up to a better alien race, I would think.
You understand what I'm saying? And so would we not establish what we have today off of that, but I'm saying have an understanding of their operating system?
It gets back to what will their physical form be like? What will their consciousness and understanding of computation be like? And it's likely to be so radically different and so far advanced beyond us that even their superior level of technology may not be able to allow them to dumb it down for our level. Is that like that Michael Shermer point about that sort of coupling of being, vaguely near each other to be able to understand it.
Yeah, right. And, we're silicon based and how our chipsets are made today and how they were developed, even the transistors, right? And original capacitors. And what I'm suggesting here is those chips may visually look like something that we manufacture here on Earth or eventually did, but they could have a completely different manufacturing process with a different, you know what I mean? It could maybe even be biological and something that we just completely don't understand.
Yeah, we're on the verge of quantum computing. There's also, biological synthetic. So,
right.
If you get to quantum computing, that's qualitatively more than we have now. How would we understand that? So there's just some non-trivial issues with us being able to effectively communicate with an alien civilization, whether it's just communication or we get to the point where we're doing trade or whatever. I think there are some things that we've discovered that are mathematical based, which are more likely to be understood and or vaguely compatible with how they communicate.
Now, and I love when we get into the non-trivial zone here, and when we talk about something ginormous like that, quantum computing and how qubits actually work, and with some type of entanglement, where I don't even think that in the world of physics we fully understand it, but clearly qubits work. How they work, I'm not even sure that we've measured that yet in that form of physics. Yeah,
you get to it's all about like probabilities, right? And observations, and entanglement. It's just mind blowing. It's hard to understand. I mean, I don't understand quantum stuff. I just know it's super complicated. That's it. I have a hard time grokking it personally.
Yeah, talk about non-trivial, right? And I'm not sure that even they fully understand it. They just know that they can make it work, right? But if you're getting into parallel worlds and entanglement, and how a qubit actually is changed and modified, now we are in the world of science fiction.
Yeah, and that's sort of like, the first level of understanding is you're able to make, and that's what science tries to do, make some predictive capacity. Okay, hey, we know the sun's going to be there, but we didn't know why at first. We thought of a geocentric point of view at first. We didn't know that the Earth revolves around the sun. As long as, once you can make predictive capacities that can help you understand what's happening, that's helpful. The next level of why, that's often far more difficult. It's the same thing with software. I mean, I've been a software engineer. I've designed software. Lots of times I can get it to do what I want it to do, but I can't always figure out why it's doing it or why it's going wrong.
And does that matter? Right?
As long as it's reliable, no, then I don't want to upset the apple cart. And one thing I've noticed with software is that, and I've done like, macros in Excel, things like that, VBA, not really hardcore programming, but I have a program that does financial projections for startups. And sometimes I look at that, and I did it all by myself, which sometimes people can say, yeah, I can see you did it by yourself, dummy. But I look at that, and sometimes it's smarter than me. And here's why, because I didn't use my average self every day. For like 1 month, I'd work on one section of it, and I'd only take the best parts of me from that month. So that software represents a compilation of the best parts of me from each month, which is far better than my average self. So something that I created by myself is, when I look at it on an average day, sometimes better than me. Of course, then 5 years later, I've learned a lot more, and I say, oh my gosh, that's junky code. But it's an interesting emergent property that something you create by yourself can seem to you to transcend your own capabilities.
That's why it would take me 10 years to write a book, because I could only take the best stuff one sentence at a time and compile it. Jimmy, that's a great book. Not really. Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Paul Hynek. We're going to go into overtime and continue this conversation. Bitcoin and UFOs. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer and UnX Networks. And tomorrow night, Isaac Arthur, physicist, is going to be here. Exoplanets and ET. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the fastest growing and one of the most watched networks in the world. I would like to personally invite you to check out our expanding library of TV, film, lectures, and special presentations. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has over 6,000 videos covering lost history, health, UFOs, spirituality, and our future. We are committed to our community, and with my personal invitation, you can, right now, get your free 30-day membership at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Your own library of information starts today at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? UnX Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNXDB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JamieChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Paul Hynek and Bitcoin and UFOs. And we're into overtime. And Paulo, I usually like to loosen up a little bit, but we're always loose when we get into overtime. I wanted to mention this to you. I'm reading a book. It was published back in 2018. I don't have the direct title in front of me, but it's called Aliens with the subtitle. And it's different physicists, scientists, and intellectuals outside of our community around the world writing, it's like 30 chapters, and different essays. And in one of the chapters, it's about your dad. And specifically close encounters and the definitions, 1, 2, and 3, first, second, and third kind. And their breakdown of it, and it's a very interesting read to see it outside of our community, because I think that we all have our own emotional connections to it and what it means to us. But to have the intellectuals comment on it was very interesting. And there was another part to this in this book. Before I read the book, I have commented over the years, and this is where I want your opinion, is that E.T., no matter how advanced, would have to have gone through the same evolutionary processes that we have gone through, right? Amoebas to whatever. Mm-hmm. And would that mean that they went through comedy, theater, music, sculpture, the arts, right? Fiction and nonfiction. Mm-hmm. They would have. Does that mean that E.T. would have a sense of humor?
What a great question. That gets back to the idea of convergent evolution, right? From Richard Dawkins. So for us as primates, these notions of humor and reciprocity and art have an evolutionary advantage because we're social creatures.
Right.
We're not just living by ourselves. And these ways to tie us into the community have proven from a merciless evolutionary point of view to have value. I could see another civilization in roughly similar environmental situations developing along a different path that wasn't as socially focused and may not place weight on things like that or have an evolutionary luxury like humor. It's a good question. Is humor, the way we think of it, universal? And one of the reasons I think it might be is that a really good definition of humor to me is an unexpected connection. So like a joke, for example, like puns are plays on words, right? And they make you groan. A joke is where you tell a story and then you change the story or the explanation. So one example, very short joke is, oh, I'm really depressed. My wife ran off with my best friend and I really miss him, right? So the humor there is not wordplay, but you start a story and then you finish it with a logically consistent ending, and that twist, for some reason, we interpret as humor because there's that connection made. So with that, it seems like it's a fairly universal construct. Now, they may have a more bawdy sense of humor than us, or I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if some form of humor, even in a civilization that didn't weigh social connections as much, probably would exist. It'd be kind of a boring place without it.
I asked Bashar once, Daralenka, Bashar. I asked Bashar, I said, does E.T. have a sense of humor? And he goes, "We're laughing at you right now." And it made sense. But then, and here's the other thing. I love overtime because of these types of questions. But if you are spanning space, you are interstellar, and you may be traveling at faster than the speed of light, but you're still... if you're not bending space, right? If you are just in a linear, you're in a nuts and bolts craft and hauling, you know the word I want to use, between stars, you're still there for thousands of years. Are you doing that in silence? Or are you piping in music, right? I mean, or are you in this cold, like you said, body, right? This cold environment without visual stimulation on the walls and artwork and music coming in? Or are you in this sterile craft with nothing happening, with no emotion?
Or, so, we all know the Drake equation, which is a equation to come up with a theoretical result for the number of civilizations in our solar system, in the galaxy, that we think may have detectable civilizations. So that's like millions and millions and millions. Then you have the Fermi paradox that says, well, why haven't we seen more conclusive proof of them or detected that? Then you have the transcension hypothesis. And this gets to your point about what's that being doing alone in that space shuttle. Well, the transcension hypothesis says that they've gotten to a point in their technological evolution where they can sort of go inwards, kind of like a metaverse, a VR world, far beyond clunky headsets and all that, where they can go inside there and have any experience that they want, such that they don't need to go johnning around the universe to get our gold or our water or look for, movies or anything. They have the richness of an interior universe inside wherever they are. So maybe that's where they're going to concerts.
An MP3 player with everything.
Yeah, right. Everything, any kind of experience that you can imagine.
Right.
For us as humans, the brain doesn't know that a dream isn't real. It's just electrical signals. So you can have a super rich virtual reality environment in which your brain doesn't know it's not real. Virtual reality, I like the sort of quick difference between augmented reality is virtual reality is we as the analog creatures go into a digital realm. And right now it's just kind of uncomfortable to stay there for a long time. Augmented reality is where we have digital elements overlaid in our analog world. At some point, those will converge. People call it mixed R or XR, for example. And it's going to be so rich that well beyond haptics and other technologies that you won't know that it's not real.
Do you have a VR headset?
I do.
You do. When was the last time you put it on?
It's been a while now. And I'll tell you, I've got a very not complicated, but an interesting relationship with the VR. I mentioned I worked on Avatar, and we used VR in the making of Avatar. There was a virtual production pipeline. So for like Lord of the Rings, Planet of the Apes, Avatar, we made those movies using VR in the production of that. So I sort of developed this sense of that 3D volume, even though the movies weren't shown in VR. So then I started working a lot more in VR and AR, and I really gravitated. VR for me for entertainment is okay, but I'm really much more interested in medical uses. And I helped USC use VR in their stroke recovery technology. And that was fascinating because you have somebody who's, let's say their left arm is paralyzed. And in some cases, and I don't know that much about strokes, but in some cases, it's an electrical circuit. It's a short circuit. The muscular system is fine. So the patient comes in, puts on the VR headset. There's an EKG and an EMG on their arm. Mm-hmm. And what's happened is the motor cortex in the brain is not sending signals to the arm because the sensory nerve impulses are not coming back. So the brain doesn't know where the arm is, where it's going, if it's in pain or hot or cold. So it says, I'm not sending instructions because I don't know what's going on. But then you do the VR, you put on the goggles and you see a virtual representation of your arm. And with the EKG symbols and the EMG symbols, it gives instructions to the virtual arm to move to where it wants to go. And then we made sort of auditory vocabulary to indicate that you're going the right direction, like and so now the brain is showing it's getting feedback and it's moving the virtual representation of the arm to where it wants to go. And what happens is the motor cortex says, that's interesting. I'm getting some kind of weird feedback here from the arm. I'm going to lean into this a little bit and start sending out motor nerve impulses that are stronger. And you do that over and over and over, that feedback loop. And eventually what happens is it can restart the dormant sensory nerves and they start flowing and the overall functionality is restored with no scalpels and no drugs, just using the inherent neuroplasticity of the brain to regenerate itself.
I can't say who. I believed I signed an NDA. So
what does it rhyme with?
I can't say who but a few months ago, I was given a demonstration of some new technology. And so I got the basic setup on the headset, but hand controls and some other stuff, and went into a few different worlds. They let me check out a few different examples of this that they wanted to show me the demonstrations of. And here's the thing. There was specific art that you could create. Now, you had to be there, right? It's like really trippy stuff. But things that are dripping and you're interacting with it and moving it around, there was that. That was pretty friggin' incredible. And as real as anything. It was pretty strange. And because I could walk and move into these environments. Then there was another, which, and that was that. That was like this artistic thing. It's hard to explain. Animation. Then there was this actual 3D house, right? And you could look outside of the windows and you could walk around. But this wasn't computer generated furniture. It was videoed, right? You understand what I'm saying? In high def. Mm-hmm. So everything is in 3D, and it's not like, oh, okay, it's not like a video game. You're going through an actual real environment. It doesn't look visually different than when, like me sitting in here, right? And walked that. It was one of the trippiest things. And now here's the funny part. They were videotaping me going through this experience. So after I'm done, then I get to see what I was doing, right, with this gear on, going through these environments and doing these things. And that was very strange because I know that inside my head, I was actually there. I really was. There wasn't any difference. And when they say augmented reality, man, it 100% was, Paul. It was a mind-blowing thing. And to watch myself in the video after that, it was very uncomfortable because I know what was going on inside of my head. I was actually there.
It doesn't take a lot. You know, I've showed thousands of people VR for the first time on a phone, and it's not high resolution, but it doesn't take a lot for people to feel in some way transformed in a way. Like one of my favorite things was to show like Palestinian refugee camps. The New York Times had compiled a large library of images of this. And people see this right away. And your brain knows I'm looking at fairly grainy stuff on your phone. But it was enough to transport people to feel like they're there. And it's a sort of empathy engine that instead of looking at traditional framed media, seeing it in this sort of way that sort of takes over all of your eyes, it got people to relate to people in a much more fundamental way. And it's fascinating because it's just electrical signals, but VR has that capacity to, I think, sort of get past your barriers to make you not think of yourself as so different from somebody, because now you feel kind of in their shoes, and it's a really powerful sensation.
Well, what's the difference between AR or, virtual, VR, it doesn't matter, and our eyeballs? It's still electrical impulses that are being interpreted by our brain.
Yeah, it comes down to the visual cortex, which doesn't have a lot of distinction between what it is. It's a signal that goes there.
Right.
And the brain is recreating, I think, like upside down in the back. So like a lucid dream, right? You've got this sort of shutoff valve in your brain that says, hey, this is not real. Now, the other sort of aspect of this is psychedelic experiences, right? Which are different types of input to the brain. And as you know, I'm a big fan of psychedelics and entheogenics like DMT. And the question there is that objectively real? What certainly feels real to me. And even perhaps before we can determine that, which is another interest of mine, to actually determine that that's objectively real, is it's valid. Psychedelics sort of got made illegal, but they're really coming back in terms of clinical prestige, in terms of the real value that people can have from these experiences, whether they're objectively real or not. The types of feeling of connectedness and of peace and of feeling that you see the universe are so powerful. And these are, again, just reduced to electrical signals in your brain.
Now,
but, they're, for many people, including myself, just transcendent experiences.
I have a mutual friend of the two of us, who I have an intellectual, I have a huge amount of respect for. I can't say any more than that. Called me up last year and says, Jimmy, last night I smoked DMT and I talked to 2 aliens. I said, what? Right? I said, you did what? I said, what'd you? He goes, it's real. I go, what do you mean? The ETs were real. I go, no, what are you saying? You were just, no, Jimmy. I'm telling you.
Yeah, right.
I went and spoke and sat down with 2 ETs. What did they look like? He said they were white, bubbly robots. That's how he described it. So I don't know what that would mean. But he said that he sat and had this conversation. And he said when he came out of it and had to think about, and he remembered everything. I'm telling you something that you already know, of course. But he said it scared the crap out of him because it was as real as anything he knows in this reality of ours.
Yeah, for me is the opposite. Not feeling trapped there, but of asking if I could stay there forever. It felt so good.
He said he wouldn't do it again. He said no. It scared him.
I think it's different for different people. I saw a comment in here. Somebody mentioned the movie, the Robin Williams. A guy named Zero Cool or a woman named Zero Cool mentioned the Robin Williams movie, and where he walked through the painted world, and that's a beautiful movie. It's called
What Dreams May Come.
Yeah, thank you. What Dreams I blanked on it. My brother Joel won an Oscar for visual effects for that movie. And it's this beautiful representation of being in a painted world. And you can easily imagine that with psychedelics, but it's probably not long before you could have an equivalent experience like that in some type of VR environment.
Is DMT something that in a laboratory setting could help answer to physicists access to a parallel world that does truly indeed exist?
That's my hope. So I mentioned I'd like to do a classification system for communications,
right?
But I'm also working on developing a methodology for experiencers, whether it's DMT or lucid dreams or ghosts or ETs or whatever it is, because I think they may all be connected. So I don't like to call them different things, but so that if you want, because a lot of experiencers don't care what science has to say about them, but for some experiencers, they would like somebody to say, yes, that's objectively real.
Right.
So I'm working on a communications methodology to inculcate into the experiencer community such that if they're going to have repeated experiences with these super intelligent entities, they can go there with a bespoke, curated, science-friendly question, like factor this large prime number, and come back with an answer. Now, it's difficult because you don't always control those situations. I know.
Right.
But it's maybe a Hail Mary. But because of my father as a scientist, I'm interested in bringing science and these experiences together. And I know scientists, and I'd like to say, hey, because if we take, random materials to them or messages of warning or your Aunt Ginny has the gout, that doesn't do anything for science. But if we have scientifically, mathematically unambiguous, difficult questions that are answered, that will make science lean in a bit. We do it a little bit more, they lean in more, we get funding, and that is a potential way to demonstrate the objective reality of these experiences, which many of us feel are real.
The first two people that you've got to get to smoke DMT would be Richard Dawkins and Neil deGrasse Tyson. Would it be enough for them to go, all right, there's something else here?
Yeah, and Michael Shermer and Seth Shostak are also open-minded scientists that have no horse in the race, that if they see compelling evidence, they'll say, yes, okay, I find that convincing. And I was on a cruise ship with Neil deGrasse Tyson when I was a kid with Neil Armstrong, so maybe I can convince him. He knows my brother. But those are the types of people that if we go to them and say, we want to do something in a scientific fashion, will you help me sort of design what that is without lending your name to it? Then if I get some hits, some interesting results, will you lean in a bit more? And those are the type of people who are skeptics but open-minded. And if you get them to say, yes, that's interesting, now you start getting attention in a way very different from the validity to somebody subjectively and an overall scientific objective sense.
We've got 45 seconds. On a scale of 1 to 10, what are the odds of pulling that off with the skeptical side of the fence? I mean, actually getting, even if it is baby steps, to pull that off. Neil deGrasse Tyson, is that a 1 or a 10?
The odds are greater than of me ever selling any of my UFO Bitcoin.
Would you? So you wouldn't give up Bitcoin to be abducted? Really?
Correct.
Really?
Yeah.
ET lands and says, you can come with us, but I need 2 Bitcoin. You're not taking the trip?
I mean, clearly I would, because I would just buy the Bitcoin back right afterwards. But in general, you're not going to pry the Bitcoin out of my hands. The odds, I know we got maybe 10 seconds. The odds of actually proving this, I don't know. But I also want to sort of permeate in the experiencer community this notion of, hey, here's a way that we can bring science into this. And that may germinate over time.
You're the best. Paul Hynek, what a great show. And I've got to get you out to the house and we got to hang out. All right?
Cool.
Okay? All right? Is that a deal?
I'm free that night.
I'll talk to you. Paul Hynek. Thank you so much, Paul. And you're going to be speaking, that's a Bob Brown event, right? UFO MegaCon up in Utah?
It's the UFO Disclosure Symposium.com in Vernal, Utah, May 27th through 29th.
Yeah, I think that's a Bob Brown event, and that looks amazing. And I'll get the links up to the event in social media for everybody. Paul, enjoy the rest of your night, my friend. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Jimmy. Anytime.
Paul Hynek. And I've got the links up to his dad's UFO report. It's right there, and you can get it on Amazon. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is only copyrighted 2022 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night, physicist Isaac Arthur is right here. Exoplanets and E.T. Until then, I want everybody to be safe. It's time to fade to black.